The PCI Security Standards Council has published the Remote Assessment Guidance and Procedures, and in there they give the legitimate reasons to conduct an assessment remotely. One of the things that they say is that the testing methods that are going to be employed are limited to documentation reviews and interviews. Those certainly can be done remotely. You can have remote meetings to conduct interviews. You can review documentation from wherever you are in the world. But when they say limited to, they say there's not a need to observe processes or systems or the physical environment for that particular entity. And I want to challenge your thinking on this and ask the question, what organization does not have critical processes that need to be observed for the purpose of security and compliance and privacy, all of the laws and regulations that apply to us today, all of the threats that are on us for people trying to steal our information, trying to compromise our employees, the mistakes that employees can make when operating the process that is assigned to them. There are processes, there are systems that are critical that need to be observed, even though sometimes people will think in an audit, well, we only need to observe this documentation, review it, and conduct interviews. We don't have any processes that are outside of the cloud, for example. And I just don't think that's ever true. I don't think there are very many businesses who don't have these critical processes that need to be observed. I want to tell a couple stories about this. There was a client who had had a PCI assessment performed for years, over 5 years, and they had been marked as compliant every year by their PCI assessor. During our engagement, we conducted an on-site review where we walked through their services that they perform for their clients. And one of the things that we do to be very sure about where data comes in and how it flows through your organization and who has access to it is we walk through how you deliver those services. And in doing that, we found the department that dealt with chargebacks. They dealt with the communication between their organization and their bank in order to investigate fraud, in order to investigate requests for clients to modify their payment method and things like that. And in that environment, we found lots of cardholder data. There was cardholder data in their email. There was cardholder data in an unlocked filing cabinet. There was cardholder data accessed by people who did not have a legitimate business reason to see that data. And that had never been discovered before in the years of conducting their assessment. And it was only found because we care a lot about observing those processes. And so that's very valuable for a security expert to walk through that with you and see what it is that you do outside of perhaps your cloud environment. The other thing, and this is just another small story that could have big impact, but in doing walkthroughs and observing what certain employees are doing, sometimes you stumble across a practice that they are involved in that you're not even there to see, but because you are there and having a conversation with them, you discover it. And this is the classic scenario, right, that we always warn against with our employees, but watching an employee conduct a certain test, we observed that there was a unencrypted note on their desktop that had all of their usernames and passwords. This particular employee had access to all of their client environments, and they had administrative accounts and passwords contained in this notepad. When we pointed it out, we weren't even there to talk about that type of issue with them, but because we saw it, we had a conversation about it. And they said, oh, well, nobody can get to that because this is a secure environment. And of course, we know that there are many ways that the threat actors out there could potentially access someone's system and find a notepad. These attackers do know to look for those types of things because employees do that. And even though it was a small finding that could have had big impact, we would not have stumbled across that if we had just been remote in that situation. And so these are the processes that should be observed and we think is very valuable time to spend with your security specialist. We would love to work with you and help strengthen your processes today.